Welcome back, Barbarians. We are back with a very special guest this week, and I am super excited about this one. I have been trying to nail down this guest for an interview for pretty much the entire time the show has existed. And this one's super special to me because we talked about this guy in our Barbarian Brief episode. We covered people out there doing savage things, accomplishing things that are incredible. And my friend Luke Kennedy is the gentleman we talked about that swam 13 miles for our 13 Fallen Heroes. He also did a 9/11 swim, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, 126, was that what it was? 126 laps in the pool. He's going to swim the English Channel. He's a man of all sorts. You could call him the human shark. My buddy, Luke Kennedy. Welcome to the Barbarian Show, buddy. Super excited to have you here.
I couldn't be happier to be anywhere else right now, man. This is awesome. Long time coming.
Yeah, long time coming. And I really appreciate your time, dude. Since we were introduced by our mutual friend, Ben, who is going to sponsor today's show, we'll take a second to address that. Tier 1 Kinetics, for all your tactical needs, please go visit them. Ben and his crew there are developing quite the system where they can give you anything that you need tactically or anything that you need for hunting, anything like that. It's all been vetted by people that know gear, that understand gear, that play with gear junkies, right? Both in special operations, some of those people, and some of these are your professional hunting category. But anyway, the entire network at Tier 1 Kinetics is awesome, and everybody there is there to help. And use code Spartan10 to help my buddy here. Spartan5, excuse me. When you check out, save 5% or something like that. Anyway, Luke, my man, thank you so much for being here. And Ben, thank you for sponsoring the show. I know you'll be listening to this one. Dude, we both just want you to know how much we really appreciate your support and your friendship and everything that we've done. You are a legend. And we'll talk about you more later in this. But
Luke, I want to interject.
Yes.
Ben, on 2-day notice, made it happen, and he was the one who actually flew in. So he flew in at 9 p.m. at night, slept over my house, drove 45 minutes with me to the lake, watched me swim for 7.5 hours, put on his uniform, and flew back. He's a pilot as well, so he literally he made it happen to be there with me, and I am forever grateful for those 7.5 hours that I just watched him tan and look good. Nevertheless, he did feed me some my croissants too. Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, he made sure your Timberlands were dry when you got out of the water, right?
I don't know about that, but he was there.
He was there. Yeah. So Ben, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's show, and thank you for your friendship, your mentorship, and providing tactical solutions for all of us. Moving right along, Luke, my man.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time today. Seriously, I literally have been looking forward to this since we first talked about getting you on. I wish it was in person because I owe you a big hug and a big handshake, but we'll get through this. We'll make it virtual. We'll share with people. I can't wait to get dove into your background. Do you mind telling people a little about Luke Kennedy?
Sure. Well, Luke Kennedy is a first-generation immigrant. I was born in Bosnia. I come from a very small family. I'm a fourth-generation only child. During the war in Bosnia, I was a refugee in so many countries. I mean, Croatia, Turkey, Greece, then America. I have been swimming my whole life, truly my whole life, since I was 4, played water polo. Water polo paid for a lot of my education, and we'll come back into later on. With that, I joined a lot of law enforcement agencies, started with Chicago Police, then California Highway Patrol, and then I worked with FBI and DEA, and then later on with the State Department overseas for quite some time. And on the way out now, I work with a lot of veterans and in bettering their skills and kind of enhancing the current police departments, law enforcement.
Yeah. You are, my friend, of all the people I know, you have probably experienced the most life. And I say that very lightly, with the utmost respect, because you have literally lived a life of adventure, a life of danger, a life of heroism, in my opinion. I know you would never call it that, but I respect greatly what you did, and we'll talk about that later. And dude, you're the prime example in my opinion, you are the prime example of the American dream, because you are living proof that you can come here and be successful. And I got to ask, man, with everything you see going on currently, tell me it doesn't terrify you coming from socialist, communist type countries.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a pattern recognition that I see that is something that I wish I didn't see. And,
Yeah.
not to sound too political or too polarizing, it's just there's certain views and aspects that growing up in communist countries and growing up in the Middle East is something that I always thought will never be possible in the United States. And then, living here and being involved with the government and the NGO platforms, now more and more as I see them, as it's a recognized pattern. So
Yeah.
it does give me goosebumps, and it's not comfortable, I have to admit.
Yeah. And I don't mean that, again, this isn't for our audience. This isn't a political thing at all. It's just,
Sure.
this is a gentleman that literally has come from this world, escaped it here, succeeded here, and is now watching it in real time kind of erode what makes us different, which is the American values and the American culture. So
Absolutely.
it's frightening, but we'll digress on that. So, dude, you are, for some reason, you're not afraid of sharks.
Let's
talk
not.
about
And nobody should be, man. I've been telling you. For your audience,
yeah.
I just a little footnote. I've been telling him that sharks are friends and not food, and sharks are really not interested in humans. And as somebody that swam a long time with them and been bumped, it's just like chances of you being mugged in Chicago are a lot more than you getting ever attacked by a shark anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, he can keep that opinion, and we'll let the juror be out on that. I'm not necessarily trying to be the retarded seal that can't swim fast enough and looks like a rooster tail or spin bait. But
True.
So, Luke, talk to us about swimming, man. Like you kind of mentioned it a little bit there. You've been bumped by sharks, which I think is absolutely bizarre. But you swam. You told me one time a story about swimming across the bay or a channel or something every
Yes, sir.
day for school. Was that what it was for?
Yeah, it was for search and rescue. It was a training. Well, I'll just kind of give a little background. I was born in a very little village that had access to nothing else but swimming and water polo. So we didn't have a soccer field, we didn't have a basketball field. We will literally put 4 boats, and they will be our water polo pool. I'll actually send you a picture so you can post them in this up. And so I swam my whole life. I've been around fish my whole life. I played water polo since a young age. Funny enough, here in the States, water polo is kind of known as this like a preppy sport where just kind of selective people go, or like elite plays it. Well, where I come from, man, I mean that's the only thing you can do because it's free. You're by the ocean, you got a little ball, and you go in. So it's very different. But yes, I swam. I was a lifeguard. I was a search and rescue swimmer, search and recovery swimmer, and during those trainings and evolutions and all those modules, when you swim at night, sharks are curious, man. They're like, what are these people doing in this waters? They'll come and bump you. They will kind of give you a little shoulder rub. You don't know where you're gonna get it. Sometimes it's on your shoulders, sometimes on your chest. I mean, but you do feel the size of them, and they do feel size of you. And I'm not gonna say it's nice, man. I mean, it freaks everybody out, but that's it. I mean, it's not. I don't enjoy it, but like it is an icebreaker when you tell the story. I mean, you were intrigued.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I will say this: we made it all in 9 minutes and 50 seconds into this, and we're talking about sharks, which is awesome. And like
Yeah.
you said, it's an icebreaker. But give us a little bit more context about your story, man. You swam a bunch as a kid, and then you had to flee. Your family had to flee, and you immigrated to
Sure. My
America.
mom and I, my dad stayed, and he was in special forces back in Bosnia, and he fought the
Okay.
whole war. The reason why we kind of came to the United States was he was a NATO ally advisor for the later on bombings that happened. So that's we kind of diplomatically got selected to come here, and I've met my dad 6 years after seeing him in the United States. So for 6 years, I mean, I technically grew up with a single mom because we didn't know if he was alive. We didn't know. I mean, at one point of time, we were given because names just like in states are pretty common. And you know,
Yeah.
when John dies, John dies. So when my dad's friend who has the same name in his platoon died, they announced my dad. They pronounced my dad deceased, and we got a flag and everything. So for 5 years, I had a little. It's like one of those like growing up fast. Um, um, uh, Moments where it's just you go through these things where you think your dad is dead, and you write a
Yeah.
journal, and you don't expect it to see it ever again. But then one day at the airport, he shows up.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that he didn't, and you've got to
Yeah,
get to know your
much
father.
changed, man. I mean, back in the day, he was very, very, very disciplinarian. And when he came back, man, I mean, he's the most funny guy now. I mean, I kind of envy my kids because, like, he's very funny.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
with
I
me.
bet. Yeah, I bet. The grandkids always get it better than the kids, I
Oh,
think.
for sure, man. Yeah, they it's a jackpot for my kids at this point. I had a good grandparents too, as well.
Yeah. So speed us up. So what happens? You grow up. Life was different.
Sure.
Where'd that take you? Tell us about your journey here.
And well, I'll just speed up to the United States. I mean, when we came to the United States, I didn't know a lick of English, man. 1998, I did not speak, I mean, anything. And
Mm.
I just happened to be gifted in math. So I understood math as a language, just the way that my mom taught me at an early age. So I was kind of in a position where I could be in a better schools or better school programs because I understood math, not so much academically anything else. And on my ACT, my first ACT, I marked everything C, man, like everything, English literature, English, just C. But my math scores were so great that schools took interest. They're like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So what happened was I got a full scholarship for water polo in a high school prior, and then a full it was a Catholic. I want to shout out to St. Pat's, Chicago. I mean, that's where everything started for me. They kind of took me in. It's a old boys Catholic high school, and everything I have today originated from that little building where they were just like, this is states, man. This is America. We are all equal here. You do
Yeah.
your part, we'll push you, and that's what it kind of is.
Yeah.
So from there, I went to school. I graduated math. Funny enough, I became an investment banker for UBS in Chicago, and economy hit where it hit in 2008. Then I became a cop just because there was no more work, there was no more mortgage, anything, and as a cop, I didn't really serve too much in Chicago. I was kind of sick and tired of being in very, very, very cold temperatures, although that is where my heart is truly as a department. Chicago Police Department is one of the places back in the day that it was just a big family.
Yeah.
I transferred over to California Highway Patrol, stayed there for just a very little bit while at the time you needed to be federally what was the word, you needed to be a federally licensed or federally qualified translator to get any extra pay that's not Spanish. So I spoke all these languages from being a refugee and being from a different country. So I just went to be a translator really, and like to get a little FBI notation on my collar as a cop, and they were like, "Hey man, you want to be an agent?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I do."
You're like, why not? That sounds cool.
Why not? So I've been in academy. I've been in so many academies in my life, back to back to back to back. That was just, I mean, physically I was ready, but it was one of those things. And this is what I want to encourage everybody. I did not have any debt. I didn't. I mean, as I said earlier, I'm a fourth generation only child, no family. So I mean, wherever wind blew, I went, and I committed 100%.
Yeah. Awesome. And so then you went into the FBI. So how long were you a cop for?
I was in law enforcement for 2.5 years.
Okay. So
as a civilian law enforcement, but my career was almost 11 years long, with 7 years being fully deployed abroad, not coming back, not just rotation, just like 7 years continuous over in Middle East.
And we'll get to that. So you did 2 years domestically, 2.5 years. So what you did, and this is for our audience, is you never allowed yourself to get comfortable. You always chase the next progression or the next entity to make you different on your collar, right? Like, as you said, the little FBI pin. You never let yourself become stagnant, though. Growth was always the goal with you, correct?
Yes. And perhaps, I had a dream. It's like an MLK thing, but I had a dream of what I wanted to have. And as soon as I realized that I couldn't have it within the conditions that I had, I knew the conditions had to change, not just me. So I wanted to be a motorcycle cop. That's all I ever wanted when I became a cop. And in Chicago, motorcycle cops are only for funerals. So it was never Chicago was never going to be my final destination anyways. Now, everybody knows about chippies, and that was just the ultimate goal. So I went for that. But it could have been Florida for that reason. It was just whoever was. I wanted to be in a Harley Davidson on a beach as a cop. That was it, man.
Yeah.
Best
Somewhere
best
where
job
you
I've
could
ever had. Best
play
job
with sharks.
Yeah, that comes with me.
Yeah. So you did that for 2 years. Then you decided, all right, this was cool, but let's add some brass to the collar, for lack of a better way. Let's do something to diversify the resume, be a little bit even more competitive. So you see this FBI ability or federal ability to apply for the feds, and you apply and get it. And unbeknownst to you, that leads to another opportunity fairly quick from what initially
right
you thought
away.
would just.
What I did not understand at the time was, I was selectively profiled as somebody that fits for what they were looking at the time, which was in Middle East.
Yeah. Thanks, George Bush, for the Patriot Act. And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you did. So how quick what was that process like for you? You were caught for 2 years domestically, and then you applied. What was the timeline there?
So, the hiring timeline for bureau is never the same for anyone. So there was a background, there was so many things that they have in common. I want to point this out. Whoever is really interested in FBI and federal agencies, they have specific need at specific times. So if you do not qualify today or in 2023. That with the same answers that you give it on the test in 2026, you might be a perfect match. And I say this because I took the test when I got in, and I got in, and I took the same test when I got out just to see how, and I didn't qualify. It's just the algorithms for their needs change. They change constantly. That happens with every department. So it's not really, they have a need to fill, and sometimes people say, well, they don't like me because I was this or I had this kind of background. True. That's mostly because they probably have enough people that fits that background. And, as positions and as theaters around the world change, needs change as well. So with that, FBI's, federal government's, in theory, jurisdiction is if the crime ends and or begins in the United States, it's within FBI. If if let's say if the guy is planning in the United States and is funding in the United States and getting funding from the United States, that's an FBI crime that they were gonna get intel on. Also, if somebody is planning to come to the United States and do harm, that's also FBI's jurisdiction because the harm's going to be here for them to investigate. The other agencies come in between as collectively to manage the risk and opportunities that they can stop it. But, that's what FBI mainly works. So at the time when I got in, I was on a team that investigated funding of potential crimes in the United States from abroad. So I was kind of getting groomed for tradecraft to understand the political, geographical, and social aspects, specifically of Turkey, because I lived there as a kid, and to be able to blend in and understand more as an analyst in a way, and then when need became kind of dire, I deployed.
Right. And then, and I know there's certain things you can and can't say, so just
Sure.
navigate that as best as you can, just for our audience. So then, your career essentially took you from like, hey, I'm going to be a translator to now I'm actively getting ready to deploy as an agent, a field agent, and then it quickly led to undercover. Right? You became a ghost.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And what was that life like? What was that life like? Because you had to. I'm going to say Jim Carrey because he is so immersed in his role, right? And I imagine that spending
Sure.
7 years deployed, 7 years in a role, like you have to immerse yourself that is you, right? You have to sell, live, breathe. I mean, your life depends on it in these situations, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the one of the bigger problems that people have is you need to kind of really give up on what you know of yourself and become that person that you're selling to be. And for me, the biggest problem, I mean, first of all, I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. So I'm not really convincing people that I'm, an intellectual. And then I swam my whole life. So I have this built that's just, it's different. But, it's undercover world or undercover law enforcement calls it a legend. So you built a legend around your daily life. And Donnie Brasco in that movie is one of those good ones. I mean, it's just like you start living it little by little, and you start living it as your own truth. The problem does become when you are immersed so much with the others or with the subjects that you do realize that they have a point that does make sense if you do not see it any other way. So that's when they call it too deep, when you are kind of confused of like, well, why am I doing this? Because this actually makes sense for this population that's doing. But initially, language, you need to, I mean, if you have an accent in that language, you need to kind of find a legend why, or do you need to work on it? Then it becomes a profession. Funny enough, I was an English teacher at refugee camps because that just makes sense. I was a Bosnian kid that was a refugee itself. There was camps everywhere around by United Nations. Living from states, coming there as somebody that once helps its own kind in the refugee world made sense. So that's I managed 4 schools across Middle East myself, but I operated within 9 in refugee camps. They were just like straight up refugee camps, and it was a English school funded by United Nations and or USAID at the time, and whoever. And I was English teacher to kids and whoever was coming, really.
Yeah, and that led you down a path of what? You had to build target packages, different things like that, right? For people that would be, say, targeting kids to use to manipulate for anti-America agendas. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, that's perfect way of saying it. I mean, those kids are prime market for everybody. They're prime market for Americans to kind of get them over, get good ones, get smart ones, or schools wherever around. But they also are easily radicalized people who are just lost everything and in this commotion, it's easy to blame West for them not going home. And then my job was at the time to identify who was, one, trying to recruit them, and then two, the kids that were recruitable by others to put them on a map so other agencies can find them later on.
Keep tabs on them. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Allegedly. So that being said, man, talk about what it was like the first time you had to get involved in operations, because of your character and because of your abilities, your size, your tenacity, and the way that you executed at your job. You weren't just a stage actor. You actually got to work with the tip of the spear in actionable circumstances, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, the challenge was actually to maintain my daily cover, because everybody at one, I mean, you spend so much time and effort embedding yourself in this community as a teacher, and you eat with them, you hang out with them, you shop with them, they see you all the time. And as it's now known, most of the operations will happen at night. So I will go from teacher to identifier, or later on called as a angel of death, because I was able, I was ahead of information that was back home in Pentagon and or states, and I didn't have it triangulated, but I had a first look and first hand knowledge of who is who and who is not who. So when operators will come in for identification, my job was to go with them and either identify that is who they're looking for or that is not who they're looking for. Now, when you go out with them the whole night, and I'm not saying I had it harder than them, but they plan for execution. They eat, they breathe, they do everything. Where I teach class, I grade papers because people expect it. I go to the shopping, and then at night I put on all the uniform. I go out with we go out and operate, and then in the morning I have to pretend like I slept the whole night, and then people ask me, "Do you see what happened to Muhammad?" I'm like, "Oh man, poor Muhammad. I have no idea what happened." But meanwhile, I have, it's just, so it becomes this bipolar state where you're just on a go the whole time, and there is no stopping. There's you need to believe in your mission, and you need to have faith that you are capable of doing what has been asked, and that you're doing it at your best ability. Because at that point, I've spoke with snipers a lot, and people you often ask, like, how does it feel to take a life as you look at someone? Because they have to witness it. There's the dude that co-witnesses it on the glass, and I've had problems after of
Sure.
knowing that I held somebody's. Sniper took it, right? But I was the one who said no or yes. So you live with that weight on your shoulders of going God, please don't make me do bad judgments, because after all, it's night, and I am not a trained sniper. I am not a Delta. I am not a SEAL. So whatever I can see from my stuff is questionable.
Yeah. Yeah, but so you did what you could, and you know what? You did it with the best of intent, and I think God will remember that, if anything. So, and that's what we have to choose to believe. We're both faith-based. We both believe in God. So
Yes,
I
sir.
just choose to believe that eradicating evil is eradicating evil, and you can't be perfect all the time, but you can certainly do your best. And I would say 7 years in theater says that you were trying your best, Luke.
Yeah.
Time and service, time commitment to it. You gave up 7 years of your life to be somewhere else and be somebody else to protect this country. And there's not a person that listens to this that can't say thank you for that. I promise you that, and it comes with a great amount of respect, especially from me, how I feel about it. So that moves us forward where you're interacting with guys of different, tier 1, tier 2 teams, different elements, and you're running with Raiders, you're running with SEALs, you're running with Delta guys, you're running with ODA teams, all sorts of people on this, because you're running with the best of the best. All of your missions are literally crucial to stop certain tragedy or, certain destruction back here at home or even amongst their own people. So you did the Lord's work, is what we say.
Yeah.
You did God's work, and you did that for a long time. And then what was it like coming back? I mean, you're 1 minute you're playing a character, and then you're also at this point. I mean, in 7 years, Luke, let's be real, you get notoriety, right? You do your job well, you do good. People enjoy working with you. You see familiar faces, you meet new faces. It's where you've got to where we'll get later with these NGOs and these other training places that you've now worked with. But like, you've done all these different things to build this. So what's it like to go from like running and gunning with the best to back to the United States? Kind of slow, right? Like, what was that transition like for you?
That's slow, man. I mean, well, first things first, I went, and just because I couldn't come home and to meet my family, my parents, or even people that at the time they were in my life, I didn't have enough time to fly back to Chicago, perhaps. That's why I was abroad for 7 years. So I will meet my parents in Paris or Barcelona, because there'll be this direct flight for where I was. There'll be the only flight, whatever they could, in Chicago. So I will meet my parents that way. So in 7 years, I had 5 passport books. So
Wow.
It's 22 pages that fits a lot of them stamps. And it's just like, I went through passport books faster than, anything. I mean, checkbook wasn't that fast for me. So just that cultural speed. When I came back, I met my wife in Washington, and it was, I mean, Washington at the time was a very cultured city, but it was just so slow, man. I mean, like, nobody's really shooting at you. I mean, no, everything is available. And where I struggled the most was seeing what I started, or missions that I've started and or been part of, seeing crumbled under different policies. And this is not left or right. Both sides have used them or abused them. But you kind of feel, because you give up so much of yourself, and then you become, that's not professional, but it just happens. You become attached to those. You become personally invested and personally attached to a mission that's, you were hired as a professional, trained professional to handle. And it's not your mission. It's, it's your government's mission, or it's the mission that needs to be done. And you were hired because you were able to do it, potentially without any emotions, essentially. Yeah. And you attach yourself. I mean, like, we all do attach ourselves to the veteran, to the guilt, to everything else, that as if, I went and fought Iraq war, but it was US of A. And it's not like that I went, Luke did not fight Taliban. I mean, I had a flag on my shoulders that I fought for. And detaching that meaning kind of almost feels like, chiseling away a identity that you really wanted to have. I mean, it becomes you. I mean, I was a Rambo. I was a James Bond, man. I mean, I was the reason. When I would walk in Starbucks, I would look around. I'm like, I am the reason why you're having your latte, lady. I mean, I am the one. Like, I mean, you don't know it, but I saved your life. And that mentality, if let loose, owns you. And that's the problems I've had. I didn't feel like people needed to thank me. That wasn't what I was looking for. I was just so, I don't want to say embarrassed, but disappointed is a good word. I was disappointed that people not valuing what they have here. Because I fought so much, or people like me and my kind and people much better than me fought so much, so hard, and gave everything for us to have this here, and it wasn't valued. And it's that assigned value that I thought was here was not valued here, or wasn't equal. That's what hurt.
And dude, it's interesting for me to hear that from you, right? Because since I've known you, all jokes aside, you're a very humble person. You do a lot. You're very proficient. You're a master at your class. At like pretty much anything you do, you devote yourself to. It's evident if you know you. And for our audience, just follow along on what he's doing. Everything he does with his heart and with intention and very deliberately, and he pours himself into it. Like it, I mean, it is evident. So it's funny to hear me say, or to hear you say like that, that's what you struggled with, was the ego essentially portion of it. And but at the same time, I could understand it, right? Because you also earned the right to have that ego. What people don't know is that we live in such a world of false sense of security every fucking day. Excuse my language, but that's just the truth. We live in this world where we think because we can walk in and something's poured in a cup and it's made and it's a pumpkin spice or it's an apple oat. Yeah, dude, I've been studying what you're doing. It's all these different little cold
Chai
brews.
latte forever.
Yeah. It's all these different little cold brews, or it's a hot chicken sandwich, literally at the beck of a call. But what people don't realize is there is literally actively people out there that in a moment's notice would strip that all away and watch you burn in hell, like, and with nothing but joy. And that there's people actively out there doing that. So we have this false sense of entitlement to safety and security and luxury. And you're right. We don't appreciate it. We don't. And then, you know, listen, I wasn't at the tip of the spear. I'm not a special operator. I was never that guy, right? I was a motor T guy in the Marine Corps with the best unit in the Marine Corps, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, because all we did was deploy all the time. And back in the cowboy days, and let me tell you, as a 19-year-old kid, when you go and then you watch people die, you see people die, your friends die overseas, or you're burying somebody, or you're going and relieving a unit that had 25 double amputees, 30 single arm amputees, and just mass chaos. And you're seeing burned and blown up vehicles every day. It's normal to drive into a place to see an A-10 Warthog or an Apache flying around shooting a tree. Like when that becomes reality, and then you come home from all of that, just to paint a picture for people, and then you see people holding signs that say, "Thank God for IEDs," or you see people arguing over the dumbest shit, like, "Hey, you don't like that I like boys, and you don't like that I like girls." And like, it's a very hard thing to adjust to. It's very hard to know on one end of life what that costs to have, but then to come and realize that nobody really appreciates what it costs to have it. That's tough, man. That's tough. And in your world, you literally, for context here, had to give your life that you knew as it was, maybe not in death senses. That's not what I'm talking about, because, you know, God bless the men that did. God bless them. I'm thankful for every single one of their sacrifices. I will never personally forget them. I won't. I can't. But that being said, you had to give up what life was to you so that we could have what we have here. And you're not even from here. So you know a world. You are now. You're more American than Americans, dude. Like, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you know a world.
I was just going to stab you from here, but I know where you live. That's fine.
I know that. Yeah. But you know a world where they don't have first world privilege. Sure. And you came from that world, earned everything you had, and then you gave up that to go back to this world to protect what you found here and the people in it. And we don't even appreciate it sometimes. And that's tough. That's tough. We're worried about the temperature of our coffee being too cold. It's insane.
And the thing is, you know, I mean, I catch myself today, you know, 7 years later, being that guy, not being thankful.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I went back to Starbucks and say, "Oh my goodness, this is 3 pumps and not 4 pumps of chai. You ruined my day." And then I'm thinking, I mean, but thankfully I do have a very humbling life with my kids and my wife and my parents, where they were like, you know, I mean, the reason why I drink Starbucks, and this is the truth matter, is Starbucks. I had a friend of mine who I was deployed with, and our goal in life was, when we go home, we are gonna marry a Karen. We're gonna drive an SUV and go to Starbucks every day and complain, so we have something to complain about. Because, you know, on top of the mountains in Afghanistan, I mean, you're drinking tar. That's not even coffee, but it's just like, you know, you're trying to picture. And I remember when I came to visit. I was in Spain, and I just like took a deep breath of Starbucks there, and like kind of envisioned it. And every time forward, when I was in Iraq, I'll be like, wow, Starbucks. Meanwhile, it just smell of death everywhere around. It just like I was just like going to those places, and to me, Starbucks is not the best coffee. Everybody knows that. Is it overpriced? Absolutely. Is it helping politically to people that I disagree with? Absolutely. But Starbucks is the most white privileged first world pinnacle place where you go and you just know you're better than the guy that's outside. Like you just feel that way. Like you're just better, even if the guy is like coming into Starbucks. At that point, you're better, and it's just the American way of being like, you know what, man? I worked hard for this, and I can afford this, and I'm gonna do it. And what?
Yeah. And what? Yeah, exactly. Like, so for all you boys that are going to come on here, just go elsewhere. We don't care. We know where Starbucks goes. We get it. We are very pro 2A. You can look at anything Luke does. He's absolutely a legend. He likes firearms. He supports it. He believes that everybody should have them. We don't lean towards communism or socialism or any of this BS. So we're just bougie and we like good. I won't say great, but we like good coffee that at one point in time was the standard.
Man, I mean, I just want to feel like the Becky in her North Face fleece and Uggs, and I just want to be carefree, man. I mean, like when I get in Starbucks, that's how I feel. Like I forget I have kids and problems. I'm just like, yes,
yeah. You feel like that when you get the water too, you say, but
this is true. So there's contradicting stuff. I understand. I see your point. You're a great interviewer. I agree.
Yeah, but either way, we'll digress on Starbucks. So what it was, like getting back serious here for a second, what it was a mental reprieve for you. It was the thought of a life that you weren't sure you would ever get to have. That's why you do it, because it's a reminder for you, for your friend, for that once upon a time where that wasn't something that you could just do. It wasn't a privilege that you got to enjoy every day or weekly or monthly. It was something
available.
That was
I couldn't take a flight to get it. I couldn't call an evac to take me to Starbucks. I mean, it doesn't exist. It's like it's such a. I mean, it might as well be on the moon. It doesn't exist. Yet we have one on every corner.
Yeah. I mean, and so I can understand that, because that's what it comes down to. Is like, and this is for our audience. Here's a lesson here for you guys that are hitters, right? For all you guys that are crushing it at work, is like, allow yourself to have that one thing, regardless of what anybody thinks of it, regardless of what any judgments or preconceptions there might be around it. Have that one thing for you that's just your reminder of the work that you've done, of the work that you're doing. I mean, that's a fair assessment, right? To say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's all.
I believe in, I grew up very Catholic, and I grew up around nuns and I mean, my call sign is Amphibious Spartan, because I do live everything at Spartan levels. I do not like to have anything complicated. But man, I will have a very expensive watch for no reason, none. I mean, this thing doesn't tell me a good time better than Casio. It's one of those things where I know I'm going to work hard for it, and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to use it. So it's not going to be up on a pedestal. It's going to be, I'm going to use it because that's going to become my instrument. That's going to become my standard. So if I need to make X amount to live that standard, and I need to work this much harder, I'm going to do it because this is my standard. I do not care what everybody else's operational speed is. I want this, and I'm going to work for it. So it becomes, some people say motivation. For me, it's not a motivation. It's just like, I need to have the best tools. You want to have a staccato? It's $3,000. No problem, man. You're just going to work that much harder to have that. I mean, it's you need to become worthy of your instruments.
Yeah. And you know what? Fuck anybody that's so small-minded that they can't try to achieve what their own version of greatness or excellence is. If you're not even going to try to experience it, you're not listening to the show, for one. For two, go ahead and live your mediocre life. We're not going to judge you for it. Enjoy it. By all
Sure. Oh
means,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
don't come crying to me about the list of things that you never got to experience or accomplish, because what is in between you and experiencing that is a lot of work, it's dedication, is a lifestyle change. It's years and years and hours and hours and reputations and repetitions and repetitions, and it's all these different elements added up. You're a math guy. It's A plus B plus B plus C times 5 times 10 times 20 times X divided by Z with the coefficient of equals that. And
Did you
that's
take
not the
math
same for
in high
anybody.
school, bro? Did you take
No,
algebra?
no,
You
no,
should.
but I sounded cool. So, I could be a
Yeah,
doctor.
I had the handwriting for doctor for sure. I got that down.
Yeah. So you come back, you have to put your ego to death, which you've done over time. And I mean, I can't imagine your life is boring. I mean, you have a beautiful wife, beautiful children, a beautiful family, right? But what's it been like? Like, let's talk to our guys that are in the workforce now that maybe, they've accomplished stuff before, experienced things before, but like you're flat because you've done things to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? You put protocols, you built businesses. Like, talk to us about life after being a ninja, essentially.
Sure. Well, I want to give out a shout out because this came out to me. This sense came to me not that long ago. Kyle Morgan. I'm sorry. Chris Kyle was a sniper, SEAL sniper. Kyle Morgan is a brother. He's a very, very good friend of mine, and he's just inspirational in everything that he currently does. But I went to him and I said, you know what, man? I mean, I'm not on his level. I mean, he is a true American hero, but I've done things, man. I mean, I was such a capable human that I don't understand how can I operate on a lower level at this point. And he looked at me and he just said, you need to go to your own funeral, man. You need to go to that James Bond's funeral. You need to let that guy die, man, because you are not in war anymore. And you need to get yourself a new mission and just take it as initial one. So my new mission became my family. I mean, again, fourth generation only child, dude. That really, I mean, I had the biggest problem I had with my clearance was I had 34 addresses before I became an FBI agent. So like they had to clear. I mean, I moved that many times because I was never tied down. So it doesn't mean that you need to forget what you are capable of. It does not mean that you need to forget and discount what you've done. It just means that you need to be able to zero in and focus on a new mission with everything that you have, just like you did when you were a Marine. I mean, when you went to a boot camp, man, it didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter what achievements you had. It didn't matter who your dad or mom was. Nothing mattered. It just, that morning run was all that matters. And then run was over. And then it was very staged of this matters right now and nothing else matters. And until you become expert at this, nothing else matters. So my family became that for me. I got married. I have my first daughter. I suffered a lot, man. I mean, I'm not, I'm very open about suicidal thoughts that I've had and a plan and the letters. And I was just like, this sucks. This life sucks, man. I mean, this is not what I want. This is not what I worked for. This is not, and I felt like I reached this ceiling that as a civilian, this is all I can do. And then, you remember as you're training, as a Marine, you remember you will take that hill, man. You look around, you find that hill, and you're like, man, fuck that, man. We're going to take that hill. So I gave myself into higher education at the time to be able to be on the same field, because nobody cared that I went to my problem was I was influencing at the time policymakers, and I was an expert on territorial happenings within the Middle East. but I wasn't PhD nor was a lawyer, and nobody wanted to hear it from a field guy. No matter how good, effective, or the only one I was, nobody cared. So I went in to elevate myself to the place where they would hear me. And that became, I mean, that's where I was the most suicidal, because I was suicidal. I was ready. I wrote the letters to my parents. I gave them my possessions away to all my loved ones. I kissed my kid goodbye and went, because I became surrounded by people who didn't understand the truth of the world the way that I knew existed, and I was not willing to live in the world where people who don't understand the truth exist. And I realized that I need to change. I need to find a different hill. That guy I cannot change the world. So I gave myself into aviation, because I flew my whole life before that, but it was just like, you know what, man, can't save the world. I have a family at this point. I have a daughter. I have at the time. Yeah. I have a daughter at the time, and I had a kid. I have a wife, and I had to make sure that my family was taken care of as good as I took care of my country when I was deployed.
Yeah. And I don't know why it is, man, but it can be so hard to turn the page. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
I wasn't like a character in anything other than just an NPC, just another regular dude, a Marine. But there's something about that title even,
Oh yeah.
I got out in 2012, and there's still something about like, I did that. I was in Afghanistan when it first kicked off. You were going through the crash being a cop. I was overseas.
Yeah,
fighting, literally fighting bad guys at the time that you're talking about, like where you were transitioning into the beginning of this. Like, sure. I was already there at 19, right? And 18 even. Growing up in a time of war, essentially, growing up with that, and then feeling like that's what your duty is, and then to come back and be immersed with 19 and 20-year-old kids that are so clueless to how that are actually disrespectful even to the things, to the just the idea of life, of violence even, and what is required of somebody. And I remember living like a rock star, kind of like you were saying, and I would be lying to say I haven't had those thoughts that cross my mind sometimes. I just experience immense rage out of nowhere sometimes from things, and it doesn't even make sense to me. But I'm sure glad you didn't, is where I'm trying to go with this, because the truth is that our calling is greater. Like, we gave ourselves to that to be better prepared. And the more that the world develops, I think it's for moments like this, so that the world has real leadership. And I've had this sense of thought come over me in more recent times as I've been diving into books and different things and just growing myself, especially the last 2 years, just in personal development, trying to, we've talked about this offline before, about just trying to elevate to that next level in life, that next tier, to inspire and help and impact more people and do more. I realized that you can't help somebody if you haven't been through something. You can't help somebody if you can't really internalize struggle and understand pain and turmoil and the discipline or the process. And so this whole time we're programmed here in this country, in America, with privileges. And I don't mean that in the political context, but like literally privileges being here, and just an access to first world amenities and things on the go and instant gratification and all this other toxic shit that we think is a gift, but really is a Trojan horse, if you're following me. Like, all those things that work against us, you need somebody that understands the other side of that to help people through that. You have to experience it. You have to relish in that process. So as much as it's painful to talk about, and I appreciate your candidness and your openness and sharing your struggle, as much as it's painful, there's a purpose, and there's a purpose in pain. And I think if more than anything, it qualifies you, because there's nobody that could ever say that you're a coward. And I dare them to, because I'd snatch the tongue out of their mouth. Name somebody else that gave 7 years of their life to do this. And then to say that you come home and everybody's literally complaining about you messed up. You put cinnamon or nutmeg in my coffee when I asked for a just heavy whipped cream, like whatever it is, insert whatever irritation there is in life today, guys. Like, there was somebody that paid a price for you to have that annoyance, to experience that annoyance today. And one thing I really appreciate about you and our friendship as it's developed is that the one thing I've gotten is, and this is especially for our audience, is that it's always going to be scary to take next step. And there's always going to be nuances to trying to figure out what next steps may be. You might step on the ladder and not have your footing right and slip and bump your shin, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying, Luke?
Absolutely.
That's okay.
And I think we were blessed with, I think in my life, I was actually blessed, like when looking back, with going through so many academies that I have. So for your audience that have never been to academy, and people that have been to certain academies, they will understand, the whole purpose of the academy is to shape you into that role just a little bit. So what they do is every academy is the same. You come in and they will tear you down. I mean, they're going to make sure that you understand that in their mind, you don't exist. You're worthless. They don't even know why you're there. And then little by little, they're going to give you more of skills. And then they're going to make sure that you are valued for that skill, and that skill only, that you become so proud of that skill. So as a cop, you go in, they shave your hair, they make you feel that you are not, that you're gonna die the first day you get on the streets, and then they're gonna give you, they give you a gun and you start shooting, and they're like, wow, you're such a good shot, and you are good, and you understand the law, and then they assign this law enforcer, and you come out of the academy so built up with this worth of, I am the law enforcement. Same thing with the Army, military. You go in as a Marine. I mean, they grind you guys down to the bare bones of your soul. But when you come out, you're assigned this high value and status of a Marine, that it's just like whenever, I've noticed this.
An
you
identity.
Ask anybody if there's a Marine, they come out, they're like, I'm a Marine. And it's built in that boot camp. It didn't exist before. It for sure has not existed when you guys get paid. But so I understood that you need to start from a rock bottom and immerse yourself into the value or whatever you want to gain through and through those academies. Because, becoming a cop, a trooper, a federal agent, an operator, all those things I had to start from the beginning. And I realized the pattern recognition, how the struggle will create something that I will value more than I ever did, and I will not lose it.
You know what's funny is, as you're saying this, like, this phrase comes to mind, and if somebody else said this first, cool, good for them. But I'm taking it. But the suffering is the sanctuary.
Yep. Yeah.
At the end of the day, your suffering becomes your sanctuary, because to suffer is to live. I mean, like, flat out. When you've suffered, you've truly lived. It's not comfortability that creates. It's not. It's not. Comfortability creates chaos or complacency, but chaos creates opportunity and change, if you will. So, to me, like, when we're talking about this, I just think back to, like, and this is for the career development portion for our guys here, our audience, is you're not going to academies, you're not taking extra classes or picking up certifications so that you can feed your ego. You're becoming these different elements and picking up these different associations or these different badges, awards. It's not so that you could say, I am a god or I am better. It's so that you can become and create the most dynamic and competitive version of yourself. It's literally physical stacks of undeniable evidence, undeniable proof that says, I am qualified to run this mission. I am qualified to apply for this job. I am qualified to lead these people. I am qualified to achieve and accomplish my dreams and my career goals and to make the money that I flat out fucking deserve. I am qualified. But to do that, it's going to come with a price, and it's going to come with the level of uncomfortability. And I think that's astounding throughout this.
Yeah. Well, there's a little psychological science behind uncomfort and comfort. So, if any of your listeners or audience has ever been dealing with phobias, any fear of anything, the way that they treat phobias is, your brain is like a giant little stretch band, okay, and your tolerance is this much for that fear. Meaning, if you see it this much, you freak out. But then you little by little stretch it out, and all you have to do is endure a little bit more. You just make to have a dent of just a little bit more, and it will stretch out a little bit more, meaning your tolerance becomes greater for it. So with fear, what they do is, if it's an animal, they like kind of bring it in the room, and then they bring it closer the next week, and then the animal like starts moving around, and like you're still freaking the fuck out, but it's exposure time and you growing tolerance to it is what happens. So it's same thing happens with, when you work out. Like you can do 10 reps, the next day you do 11, next week you do 12. It's the same weight. Nothing has changed. Same you. It's just you are now, your muscle fibers are now ready for what you've done before. So you became stronger, hence your tolerance is more because you're actively keeping yourself more exposed to that harshness. So in life it's the same. If you become stagnant or you retrieve from what you are afraid of, well, it controls you. If you are exposed to it and kind of face it and live with it, well, it doesn't matter anymore. It's just like cold outside. Like, the first day of ice, nobody wants to go outside. But then little by little, by day 15, you're outside just remembering how nice you used to be 2 weeks ago. But your brain has kicked into like, what? This doesn't bother me anymore. This is not controlling me. So in psychology, the way that the fear is installed is the same thing. People start talking about certain things just little by little, like, them communists, and then like the next door communists, and then the communists without, and then communism becomes, and it's the same thing. It's just like, you can use it in life if you can grasp that platform, that the more you expose yourself to the things that you think limit you, they will limit you less. Be it eating better, drinking less, working out, less around TV. Try with your phone. You put your phone down for first 10 minutes the first time, when you're addicted to it, you're gonna freak the fuck out. How many followers did I lose? Within a week, you won't even care. It's just that your brain is gonna find something else to tune in, and that's not gonna be a controlling subject. That's something they actually teach you at the tradecraft school.
Yeah, well, that's a brilliant piece. And that's also why I think forced adversity is such a tool for anybody. Let's take the cold plunge, get a trough, fill it full of water, let it freeze. It's in the winter. Go put yourself somewhere it's uncomfortable. You sit underneath that water for X amount of time. Your brain is freaking out. It is freaking out because you're submersing yourself in cold water, and it's fight or flight mode. But guess what? Day 2, you already know you did it day 1. So you go a little bit longer. Day 3, it's longer. A week in, you double your time. 2 weeks in, you look forward to suffering for that short period of time, and you just set the alarm and close your eyes. Where you started, where you couldn't even think about the color of your swimming trunks when you first got in because it's too much for your brain to rationalize, to where you you could sit and pray and have a conversation with God now. These little tools that stretch you, though, will make you more dynamic in all areas of your life, though, especially if you put yourself under the pressure. So for our audience, this is what I'm trying to capitalize with this man, especially who's lived a life, a legend, if you will, like for real, though, that's lived this life, is that forced adversity and trial and hard times and collecting evidence of undeniable proof and accelerating, earning awards, earning certifications, earning certificates, earning classifications, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is in your career, titles that you're after, positions, whatnot, the more aggressively you pursue and collect those, the faster and more dynamic you will become that version of yourself, which is going to change, by the way, that you want to be. But it's going to come with aggressive action, and it's going to come with uncomfortability. 100%.
One time you've asked me what is the inspiration or the readings or stuff that I use, and
we'll get to that. Save that.
No problem.
Save that. We're not there yet.
No problem.
We're close. We're not there yet.
No problem.
But what I do want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about creating value and challenging yourself, right? So this is a perfect segue for that too, because we're at that point where we just nailed the coffin shut on forced adversity, on being uncomfortable, on forcing yourself to grow and finding value in hard, right? And finding purpose in pain, if you will. And I want to talk about creating challenges for yourself, not only what your opinions of what that does for someone, like especially within their career, but also in how you can provide more value to people. Do you care to kind of take us to class, if you will, there?
Sure. So I thrive in pain, in physical pain. I mean, some people get off with, reading books or I like to feel challenged, or physically I have to do more, hence all the things that I do, swimming and everything else. But it's never enough for me to and I'm not trying to be like a big-headed here, but it's just like, if I'm working out, I'm truly competing against myself. And I love those little older machines when they like show your old time, and then like your thing is like there, so you're competing against yourself from like the last time you've done anything. And initially it was how much I can do, how much I can squeeze, how many miles I can run during the day, and then now it became, how can I teach what I know to somebody around me, so they can outperform me. Yeah. And then it's becoming this. I'm working with a young guy here in where I live, and I almost want to cheat. I'm like, man, this motherfucker is getting good, like with swimming. So it but that's become a challenge, because before, and I wanted to cut you off earlier, but I didn't. I also struggle with, when I got out, one of my struggles was, there's nobody as good as me that's going to do this. It's like, who else but me? Like, I am at this point the most qualified, most trained, most experienced dude in this. If I stop now, it's going to collapse. Like, it becomes that ego of, like, I've been doing this for 7 years. Introduce a new guy that's like, doesn't know anything, can't do it as good as me. So I have to continue going to do it as well, and also to protect him from being injured. So the transfer of knowledge, it's been my new challenge, because one, I like most of people who operated in adversity, I don't really value my skills as much as some others do. Like, I just survived with those. They became natural to me, that they developed within the conditions that I was in, that I don't know. Like, I mean, somebody will pay money to learn how to swim like me? Crazy, but people do. And creating value for me has become, I don't want to say a goal, but has become a way that I keep score of how good of a human I am today.
Mm.
Because I feel that which I'm very comfortable being alone, man. I mean, I am like that lone wolf, like the cougar that can just like live up in mountains, come out, eat, and come back. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna come out for my latte, go back, I'm good. But that's not life.
Yeah.
So within the aviation school, just teaching things that those kids or my students, they're not always kids, will never see. You know, I've been lucky enough to be exposed to Afghan wins, and it's impossible to explain that. But it's just being able to explain those things. It's creating a value in these minds where they understand that there is more, and it's that gift that you and I brought back from where we were. That if we don't give it, it loses its whole value. Like and it's not oh man, I've seen things like I was in the war and the shit that I've seen. No, it's literally like, hey man, I mean, you need to understand that if you enter a Muslim house with your left leg in, you're wishing bad luck on that, and just don't do that. It's just that's fucking simple, and that will create such more diversity in people's lives. It's not a tradecraft. It's not a CIA, black ops thing. It's just like it's culture that I've learned that's so easy to transfer to anybody else. Like if you're getting into a mosque or into a Muslim house, make sure you cross the threshold with right foot. Friends forever. How easy was that? All your people know that now. But had I held it to myself, it's useless.
Right. 100%. Man. So the importance of creating value to you, it's almost become another hill, right?
Yes.
How can you take the lessons that you've learned and the things you've experienced and then create a better version of you within somebody else now, through somebody else. And it's funny you say that because like, for me, the change, like the whole purpose of this podcast was to solve, like I'm solving the equation for myself by trying to help other people solve theirs by providing value. Because the whole idea behind this was how can I help you not experience the hurts that I am or the struggles that I'm going through and accelerate even faster than I have experienced to the top of your map. And I don't believe that there is really such a thing. I have what I call a never summit mentality, Luke, where like it's like a false summit. Every time you get up there to where you think you want to be, then you cross back down into a valley and you realize another challenge, another goal, another dynamic in life, and you start climbing a new mountain, right? Like or a new peak. So
yeah,
I think the top is wherever you decide to stop, I guess is what I'm saying. Like that's what it becomes. But for me, I don't know that there ever will be that. But what I do know is that I can take the immense amount of experiences that I've had and the immense amount of pain I've experienced, and I can repurpose that to provide immense amounts of value and hopefully impact in people's life to help them accelerate their trip up the mountain, if you will. Yep. And I think it's beautiful that you're doing that in aviation. I think it's beautiful that you're doing that with law enforcement and even some civilians in the tactical sense of things and in the firearms proficiency and close quarters. Like, I think it's beautiful that you're able to take these things that you've been through and experienced and then parlay them to help create immense amounts of value to an everyday Joe. I think that speaks to your character, but I also believe that's what we were created to do. We're not supposed to die with our secrets.
Yeah.
You're not. In fact, you bring more value to the world sharing it, right? And I mean, and like, I like to think, dude, and I know this about you, so this isn't going to come as a shock, but like your daughters will be far outperform anything you ever did.
Oh, I married well, man. My wife is the gene pool is much bigger than what I had, but yes.
But they will far outperform and succeed. They will know success in ways that you couldn't have imagined when you were a child, even as an adult, that you couldn't have imagined, because you're willing to transfer these knowledge. Because that's what we are created to do, by the way. So listen, while we're on these topics, man, I think we're in a perfect spot. I want to transition to questions.
Okay.
I really want to. I want to transition to ask some questions because I want to be respectful of your time. And
No problem.
This has been a really great conversation, and I appreciate it. So first and foremost, dude, I got to ask you the show question, right?
Yes,
I have
sir.
to. And I'm really excited to see how you answer this because Barbarian to you is probably similar to what it is to me in a lot of senses, but I'm curious to see what you do with this. So what is a blue collar barbarian to Luke Kennedy?
Yeah. So I am a blue collar barbarian, man. It's like, to me, is that's a status, that's an earned status that is equal to a Marine in military terms. It's just like absolutely no BS, no hills too high, no mountains too steep. It's just like, how bad do you want it? This is how bad I want it. Are you with me? Are you not? It's not, I am on this journey to conquer this path.
Yes.
And you don't have to be with me, no problem. Don't stay in front of me. You want to stay behind and watch. See you later, my friend. But it's just like, to me, a barbarian, a blue collar barbarian, because the world is tough, man. I mean, every segment, every platform has its own battles and bureaucracies and shit that's just not fair. Just like any battle, just like any hill. I mean, you can take the same hill from different sides, and somebody's gonna have it easier than others. But it's just like, I'm gonna be on that top, man. And to me, blue collar barbarian is a person who is just like, I'm going up there. See you up there, dude. Come on with or don't matter to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, dude. Moving right along, because by the way, before we do, I do want to say, like, you can come with me, but get out of my way.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And if you don't want to come, it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I appreciate the time that we've experienced, the life that we've got to experience together. And I'll see you on the other side, because like you said, no mountain too high, no valley too wide, nothing. Like, I will accomplish what I set out to do, and I will do it in the most archaic, unruly, aggressive fucking format that I can, because victory will be mine, and I don't care what it costs. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if I know you post this everywhere, but I mean, there's a certain like font language, but the way that I approached when I was how do I say this politely? When I was super me, I used to say, like, you want to fuck? I love to fuck. Let's fuck. It's just like, I mean, you do. I mean, I will. I am not for violence, but you want to fight, man? I've been waiting for you my whole life, bro. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that it's just like, people say, look, like, I appreciate you. No, I don't, man. Fuck you. I'm going that way. And people will say, like, well, I really hope that I can change your mind, about my journey. No, man, this is my journey. I've started long ago. Like, I started there. I didn't start here. So come on down.
Come on down. Step right up. We'll see if you're tall enough to ride this ride.
Yeah.
Moving right along, brother. How can someone get into counterterrorism careers?
The best way to be a counterterrorism relevant is to pick a culture. It doesn't have to be your own, but pick a culture and completely understand it, from the sports to the history to the current events. I mean, pick any country in the world, and if you cannot tell me their most favorite singer, you're not relevant to that culture. So, people think about the training and how much they know and the language. Those are all skills that can come, but like the cultural immersement of you understanding why terrorism happens and why people elect to be violent towards ours is a clash between the cultures that exists. The British culture is such it's on such a relevant platform with us that we never really have British terrorists because there's culturally nothing different than us and them. And if you can understand the culture of a country, any country, and I'm not saying these are terrorist countries, I'm just saying like Bosnia. If you can understand Bosnians, you can understand what is the difference between Bosnians and Americans, and then you can become an expert of identifying what can be fixed or needs to be fixed or doesn't need to be fixed at the relevant times. So the best way to start is doing your homework and like really following a certain country from A to Z. And when I say pop music, you gotta be able to listen to this shit because you're gonna in clandestine stuff. You're gonna be listening to radios and games and soccer and cricket and all that stuff, and you need to enjoy it. If you can't tolerate it, you cannot be it.
Yeah, no, that's sound advice. And that's definitely a good perspective to have on it too. I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's incredible. Moving right along, how did you use tough lessons as fuel?
To me, it always was. I did that much to get here. I will not stop now.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna quit something, quit it in your mind before you start. If you start, you're already too far to quit in my mind. So it was just like I mean, for academies, for everything, like I didn't, like 3 to 4 years in my deployments, I would question. I was just like, I did not do 3 years to fucking quit now. And to me, that became like, it's a stubborn way of doing it. It's not necessarily the most intellectually sound way, but to me, the tough lessons were always like, I know what it takes to survive, and this is not gonna kill me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Powerful. Segueing right away from taking that mentality of what it took. So, what's your biggest inspiration?
Man, the biggest inspiration I always had was really willingness to be an example to my family. Like in my culture, there is a saying that says, "Be a picture of your ancestors." So when people look at you, like represent where you come from, represent what you stand for.
Yeah.
So I always milked it in my head that like I am the American that people met. Like I will kill you, but I will smile. Like I will tell you thank you. I will eat your food. I will represent I am the diplomat of my family and my tribe, and that always inspired me to like be. It's like that cliche, be the best you can be, but it's just like that was the reason why I always did what I did. It was just like I come from a line of people. I'm a product of them, and here I am to represent what they're capable of.
Yeah, awesome. And then on the flip side of that, what's your biggest goal then?
Man, so the biggest goal has been world domination for a long time, but that's not going that well.
Not
The
much to
biggest goal,
capture.
not yet. The biggest goal is I would like to have my own airport that teaches every kind of aviation to everybody. I would like to be able to. I would like whoever wants to learn how to land a plane. I want to be able to be in a place where it's just like fucking show up. You do 20 push-ups, I'll teach you, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope you do get that. I know you will at some point. It's what you're working very hard
That's
for.
my goal. And my goal is to really make aviation more accessible and less far away from people's thoughts.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Make it more of a reality to more people.
Sure. And everybody.
Awesome.
I mean, regardless of their backgrounds.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take you up on that because
I hope you do.
I want to pick it back up. I used to fly helicopters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see that through. That's becoming increasingly more important to me. All right. So we talked about how you dealt with some demons and some hard times, and how you've created the character that you are today, and found a new hill, right, and a new purpose. What can someone do, or how can someone regain the steering wheel, figuratively, in their life, when they feel like they've lost control, when they feel like they've lost their way, their purpose? Like, what can someone do to regain that?
So I'm gonna reference two things. So you can understand is like what happens when your gun jams in a gunfight. You have to step back, try to clear it, try to see for all known things what's going on. You need to assess of what's going on. You get a full understanding of why did this happen. It didn't just happen for no reason. Same thing happens in aviation when you lose engine and you're flying, you're not looking straight down to like land right away. You're thinking about it, but it's just like you need to step back and assess what you have, what could go wrong, and what you have to fix it. With weapon systems, do you abandon and go for secondary? Do you think by clearing it will do? Are you simply out of ammo, man? I mean that happens all the time. Like nothing was wrong. You didn't even lose control. It's just at this point you just need to recharge, bro. You just need to, dump that mag and put a new one in, and you're good to go. So I'm not a best example of this all the time, but I try to stop, not necessarily step back, but stop, take a breath, assess, and if need be, take a step back. And what that means is disconnect from the internet, disconnect from the friends that you have. They're not really helping you. Disconnect from luxury, man. I mean, like if you're in a bad situation. This is a true story. I at one point in time had I've collected watches when I was an investment banker, and I had every single color made in one specific model. And when the market failed, I sold it. I sold every single watch I ever had. Although I worked, today will be worth maybe 7 times more as much as the time. And I gave it to my parents and I left. So it just like, I disconnected from luxury. I disconnected from that situation and went back and built myself completely new. So what my suggestion is, if you're in a financial struggles, if you can reduce what you have, some people can't. I'm not saying like, it's so easy to get out. But if you have bleeding problems that are luxury, don't use them for 3 months, 6 months, a year. You will survive, man. It's not going to be nice, but you will survive. And you will come out better and better, much better than you were before. Same thing with relationships. If you need to break up, man. It's just like I've heard this once, and this is an Afghan proverb, or saying: when you dump out trash, you never go back to check on it, right? You don't go back to look at it. Is it still there? It's trash. It's gone. Like once you take that trash out of your house, whatever's going to happen to it, be wild animals, be the trash pickup, be whomever, not your problem anymore. You are out with that trash. So you need to designate the value of whatever you need to get rid of as not important anymore. Not necessarily just trash, but just like it's out. Like when you donate good clothes to the and this could be with friends. When you donate clothes to Goodwill, you don't think about it anymore. Like, oh man, I wonder if that guy is looking good in my jeans. No, it's just like it's a good thought. It's good. It's gone. It's done. It served me well. Now it's serving somebody else well. So stop. Look at what you have. Look what you can fix it with, and if need be, step back and change systems.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. That's incredible advice and perspective. Thank you for sharing that. And then my last question for you is, I'd consider you a giant. I'd consider Blake a giant. I'd consider Kyle obviously a giant, giants amongst men. And how do you, and this is for our more aggressive listeners that want, like we're saying, to charge the hill, right? How do you stand out amongst giants? or within a circle of giants, right? Like, how do you step into that arena?
Well, to put on record, I am nowhere close to those people, man. I don't consider myself anywhere
Sure.
close to what they're capable and what they did, but the only way, the best way to stand amongst and with giants is to bring something to the table that you will die for.
Yes.
And that be loyalty, that being hard work, that like this is something that will teach you at interrogation techniques. Like you right now, if I told you, you know what, man, you stole my mom's ring, you will lose your shit. You're like, me? I stole? That will offend you so much that somebody would consider you stealing, because that's like the lowest low in your mentality. But if I was to say, you I don't know, like you parked wrong, I'd be like, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't fucking know. Like, what's it to you? Because parking wrong is not offensive to you. So like, you need to be, you need to value loyalty or hard work or any of those things that you can assign to yourself, that if somebody questions it, you will lose your shit. What do you mean you're gonna outwork me? No fucking way.
No.
You cannot outwork me. You might perform better, but I will work more than you, bro. Or like, what do you mean I left my guy? I will never leave my guys. You know this from all the people that you work with. Like, you will never leave your guy behind. So if somebody questioned that loyalty to you, you will lose it. So that's the value that you have, that is in real life more valuable than skills that can be earned or learned. So like, to me, I am lucky. I'm very lucky that I am friends with Spencer from Alpha Country, with Blake, with Kyle, with you, with Ben, and I feel that most of you value that I'm just loyal to all y'all, and you guys are loyal to us. It's this loyalty that, like, no matter, and if I'll tell you, and this is a true story, man. My wife got sick one time, and I was in training with Blake and Kyle in North Carolina. I live in Virginia, and I trained for 2 days. I was pretty tired, and my wife was in Tennessee, and I had to just go pick her up. But this is after 48 hours of training CQB, and it's just a lot of helping, a lot of physical activity. Although I trained, and Blake and Kyle trained as well, Blake called me every hour to check out where I was, just to make sure I was still up driving, because I was driving for 16 hours. And there's nothing more he could do. I was on the road. I had to drive now to Tennessee from North Carolina and then back to Virginia. But it's just that I know that if I need anything, I will call you and you'll be there. And that's very rare. The same thing, like, it's just like for all these people that are in your life, if you can be somebody that is of integrity, of whatever their craft is, no matter what that is, it really doesn't matter. You will have a circle of your friends that will be forever a bond that's just undeniable force.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully stated. Beautifully stated. Well, Luke, I think this is where we'll put a pin in part one. Because part two, I want to get into the adventures of Luke, climbing the Himalayas, being bit by a poisonous snake in the middle of a jungle, some of your adventures, just to inspire people to see what's out there. But for sake of time, and because of the value of what we just conversed about in this last conversation, I really want to put a pin in this right here, because I think this is its own element. That being said, brother, I really appreciate your time. We're at that point of the show where I like to leave our audience with something, with closing thoughts and something to keep their mind right, which is what we alluded to earlier. And that's where I asked you, do you have a book recommendation or recommendations or quotes? And what do you got? Because I know you got something. Sharpen the spear here, bud.
Sure. So to me, I've been in water sports a lot, and doing during the 80s, there was two Italian twins, the twin brothers, they're rowers, and they will dominate rowing races by just sprinting out the first half. I mean, insane. Imagine it's 2.5 kilometers, but they will just sprint out, man, and you wouldn't be able to see them, and they will destroy everybody. And this Brits who were racing them at the time kind of cracked it up and said, well, it's just a timing thing. Like, you don't have to be. And, it's not their quote, but it's the quote that their coach used. And it was just like, if not you, who? And if not now, when? So if not you for this mission, for this hill, who? Is there somebody else better than you? Is there somebody else better than you that can live this life that you want? So if not you, who? It's you. And if not now, when? Is it yesterday? Is it tomorrow? It's now. So if not you, who? If not now, when? And they were the first people who beat him, man. And funny thing is, after they beat him, those Italians never won again.
Wow.
So it was just like, the coach was just like, when at the beginning, it was just like, if not you to beat those two guys, who? And if not now, in Olympic finals, when? That was it. So
that's powerful.
when every battle that I went to, to me, it would be like, if not you, the most trained, qualified, whatever I will pump myself up to be, who? And if not now, when you're here, then when? So it becomes this thing like in your life, when you go to work, if not you to succeed today, then who? And if not when, if not now, when do you want to succeed?
Yeah. Awesome. If not you, who? If not now, when?
And if you can't answer that with anything else, it's not you and it's not now.
I like it. How about you have a book or just that quote?
I'm going to be cliche, but it's just like, the quote is what I live by. The books, next time I will give books about what I used, because, you can always go down to Bible and all those things, but it's just like, I like to just have like, how bad do you want it? If not you, who? If not now, when? That's it. Simple.
If not you, who? If not now, when?
Yep.
Luke Kennedy, my man, the amphibious Spartan, swims 13 miles to honor our fallen. Thank you, Ben, for being there and supporting him for that, and so that we could all watch and seeing you accomplish that was incredible. And thank you for doing that. Swam for 9/11, 126 laps in the pool, and getting ready to conquer much, much more, which we will talk about in part 2. Luke, thank you so much for joining me on the Blue Collar Barbarians show. This was truly an honor, dude, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish more. I'm so thankful to be in your friends
Together,
group.
man. Together.
Yep. As the boys would say, with you.
With you. Yes, sir.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Luke Kennedy, he's a rock star. He's appreciated. If you find value in this, which I know you will, please share this episode with a friend that you know is going through it, or a friend that you know could use a pick-me-up. Just send it to somebody to promote it. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And you can follow Luke where? Luke, where can they check you out?
Instagram, amphibious.spartan. That's me, one and only.
All right.
Amphibious.spartan.
And you'll see all the crazy adventures that he does on there with training, you'll just get a better idea of some of the things that we've talked about. And we'll share some photos when we do these shorts as well. So thank you again, Luke. And to everybody else, we'll catch you on the next one.